Hello, I'm Jacqueline King. Welcome to my sewing space. I'm here to encourage and inspire the new or frustrated sewer. Today we're going to look at my infallible method for putting an invisible zipper in a garment. But before we do that, I had a question from a viewer that I'd like to address. The question was regarding nylon coil zipper slides. Now, the question was, what do the markings on the back of the slider mean? And I want to tell you that other than the number, which is the size, I don't know. If any viewer watching this knows, I'd love for you to comment and tell me. I think they're manufacturer marks. I do know that YKK stamps their products. That's a brand of zipper manufacturer, and they will stamp YKK on the back with the number for size. Other than that, TACAN is probably just a manufacturer mark. To begin, we have a standard number 5 nylon coil zipper. The teeth are exposed on top. You see the latch here, and if you were wearing your jacket, it would look like this. The type of slide you need for this is the channel piece, fat on top, thin on the bottom. This is the channel that pulls the teeth through, and obviously you need more room on the top for going over the coil. This will make more sense when I show you the reverse nylon coil. This is the second type that we have where the teeth are not exposed. This one happens to be a waterproof, that's why it's so shiny, but they're not all waterproof. What you'll see is the teeth are covered but exposed on the underside. So for this, you need a reverse number 5 coil zipper slide, which has a thin metal piece on top and the thicker on the bottom. The teeth are on the bottom, so the bottom needs more room to accommodate. So when it comes to zipper slides, ignore all those little letters. Focus on the size, number 3, number 5, number 7, 8, or 10. Heavier duty, like a sleeping bag, is probably going to be a number 10. A tent will be a 10. Carhartt heavy duty jackets will have a number 7 or 8 zipper, but you're most often going to find a number 5 separating zipper in any jacket or coat. I hope that clarifies and answers the question. If not, let me know and I'll answer in the comments. So let's get this out of the way and let's talk about our invisible zipper method. All right, as mentioned, we're going to look at my infallible method for putting an invisible zipper in a garment, blouse, dress, pant, or skirt. I just put some samples together to make it easier, but this would be your garment piece cut out. And this is what it would look like when your invisible zipper is put in. The finish. One thing that you want to remember on an invisible zipper, while the teeth are not exposed, the latch will be. So the color that you choose for your garment will match, the latch will closely match that color. So this is what it will look like when finished. One smooth, continuous seam. That's where our zipper stops and where our seam picks up, and you cannot tell when it's closed. Today I'm using a burgundy thread with a white zipper on a blue fabric. Obviously that's all wrong if you're doing this at home with a garment, but this is for your viewing so you can easily see every step what I am doing. I'm going to set that aside for a minute. And if you watched my previous invisible zipper tutorial, you will see and remember that we prepared by going to the ironing board and pressing our invisible zipper open. This makes it much easier to handle at the sewing machine and get our needle exactly where it needs to go. So if you didn't watch that video, there are some tips and pointers in there that will help you with this. Now, when you have cut out your garment piece, this can go in the back or the side. It could go in the front too on certain applications, but you're going to have two pieces of material, and I recommend that you finish your edges, the raw edges first. This is a serged edge. You could zigzag or do any other seam finish you want, but they should be finished so they don't fray out when we're done. So having cut your pieces, finished your edges, you will notice there is a notch. This notch indicates the end of our zipper and where the seam of the garment picks up. And that's very important because we're going to sew the whole thing closed. So I'm going to put a pin. You put as many pins again. And I recommend, if this is your first time sewing a zipper, or especially an invisible zipper, don't use a plaid or a horizontal stripe. It's just going to make you buggy trying to match everything up. You will be able to do that in time, but for beginners, start simple, just a solid fabric. With my zipper foot already on, I am going to sew from the bottom of the garment a regular construction stitch. So I'm going to back up to anchor, and now just a regular, I'm going to put my hand behind, get everything together, putting even tension. I'll put my thumb and finger here and the left hand behind. And I am using about a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which I like for garments. It leaves room to let out later on if you need to alter. If you use a 1/2 inch, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, at this point, I'm going to remove my pin and back stitch, and I'll just hand turn 3. And now I'm going to go all the way down to a basting stitch, and we're going to go up the rest of the way. If you need to draw a line, a tracing line, pin it out, you do what you need to do to keep everything lined up together. And I'm just going to hand tie this at the top. I'm not going to reverse stitch it because this is going to come out when we're done, a regular knot. Once, and that's just to keep it from separating, because what you would do now is go to your ironing board, open your two pieces out flat, and press. And make sure everything is nice and flat, and you can see those notches right where we need them. And this is where you can take your zipper with you, open it up, and press that out too. To save time and movement, I have pre-prepared this piece, which is what I'm going to sew our zipper on. But you can see it's the same thing. I have pressed it flat and pressed open my zipper. Your zipper should be a minimum of 2 inches longer than the opening, and that just makes it easier to get at, especially when you get down to the bottom and you're dealing with your slider. Also, I should mention, you can trim the top, you can finish the top if you don't want bulk in your facing. You will be facing your garment to finish the raw edge of your neckline or waistband. If you don't want bulk, you can fold the top edge over 45 degrees and once again like so, and take a couple of stitches and secure both sides. And then that would be placed at the top of your seam allowance. Your facing will sew across here. So that's one method. We're not going to do that today. This is very lightweight fabric. It's not going to add that much bulk, this little nylon zipper. So depending on what your seam allowance is, we're going to say it's 5/8 inch. Then we can use the top of the zipper as a mark. When both start at the same place, like so, it's going to be even. If you were using 1/2 inch, trim that down to 1/2 inch, and then you'll be able to use the top of the zipper tape again as a mark for lining everything up. All right, now I'm going to turn this around. This would be, I'm going to say, if we're sewing a dress, this is our neckline. If it's a skirt, this is our waist. To begin, the first thing you want to remember is your slide will face down, and that's so when the garment is open, your slider is on the correct side. So I'm going to hold this side of the tape in my hand and unzip. I now go up here. I'm lining the top of the zipper tape with the top of the edge of fabric, and I'm going to put a pin in. Now, with that started, we can get the fabric out of the way. We're not sewing here yet. What we're doing right now is just placing our zipper tape in the correct place. Our first line of stitching is going to go outside. But as we're sewing here, you want your teeth right at that seam. Let me correct that just slightly. There we go. All right, so now that I have my zipper tape at the top, if you show a little seam allowance over here, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that the teeth are on that seam. And we're just going to use a basting stitch. So I'm going to go down one, back one. This is not going to be removed. This will help to keep your zipper flat as you're wearing the garment. Okay, now we're all set. With my teeth on that line, hold my threads. And because I'm not using a regular presser foot, it's a little wonky. My zipper foot does not grab the material as nicely. Again, you can pin, but you're not pulling anything. The only thing you're doing is making sure that the zipper teeth are where they're supposed to go and everything is laying flat. And this will be important to make sure things line up even when you sew the other side. You can do this step with your regular presser foot, which I normally like to do. Just save time by putting the zipper foot in first. And we're going to sew until we get to our notch. So our notch is where we're going to stop when we go down again and sew next to our teeth. Right now I'm going to sew just beyond, and we will back up. Honestly, I don't like zipper feet because I just never feel like I'm getting enough of a grip on the material, but when you're putting in a zipper, they're pretty much necessary. And our first side is in. To continue on, zip your zipper closed. Take a pin, because you want to make sure that your zipper tape starts and stops in the same place on both sides. That's just a placeholder. We can make it easy on ourselves. Unzip. Before you unzip all the way, you're going to just lay that flat so that the other side of the tape is lined up in the same place at the notch. Now let's get this completely out of the way. Well, yeah, I know. It's so much easier to do than it is to talk about doing it. But you'll allow me my human failures and foibles. Okay, I've unzipped it all the way to the bottom. The pin held it, so I know I'm in the right place. Here's my notch. And now we turn and sew from the bottom up. And just like on the other side, we're going to start on the outside, just a little below the notch. With my needle in on the outside, I can see how nice and level this lays. Everything is lined up exactly right. A couple of stitches forward. Again, we're on basting stitch because it's just the outside. This is not going to hold it in necessarily. Remove your pins. Press that seam so you know it's flat. Move your zipper teeth over to it and start. Now at this point, I want to make sure that this is going to end at the same place. So I will pull up slightly, grab here, check my placement, and continue. All we're doing right now is getting our zipper in place so that when we sew by the teeth, we are 100% accurate. And yes, it's a little difficult to get your fingers, your hands right when you're just learning this, but after a bit, muscle memory kicks in. You'll need fewer pins and it will take less time. So at the top, I'll move this slightly out. And now I'm going to hand turn my wheel. Back, to, and off. Let's remove everything from the sewing machine and see where we are. All right, so we're going to open this out, and here we are. We have now got our zipper in place, exactly where everything is lined up. And I want to show you something really quick. A pen. And here's a straight edge. Let's suppose you have a waistband in a dress or a top, and this ink will represent the waistband. Can you see that on camera? Maybe that's not dark enough. I just drew an ink line across. This represents a waistband, a waist seam in a dress. When you're using this method, you can see how easy it is that when you're finished, they're going to be aligned. They won't be cattywampus. So that's just an aside. All right, our next step is to take our handy dandy seam ripper. So beginning at the notch, this is where our basting started. Pop that thread. Take a couple so you can see. If you pull it now, you can see on the outside, and you can slide. When you slide, it leaves a lot of little hairs. You can also, I call it pick and pull. And to me, this is the faster, cleaner way. You're just breaking and pulling these threads to remove. All the way up to the top. And that's why I hand knotted the end instead of sewing it with the machine. It just is easier to come apart. Voila! But we're not done yet. Get rid of all these little hairs. Cut away any threads. Remember, no threads left hanging. That's just something to get caught in your zipper and frustrate you. So now we have it placed. Here is our seam, nice and secure. Here is the end of our zipper. So turning it around once again. Our basting thread. Open the seam allowance out, and now we get down to the nitty-gritty. All right, we've started at the top edge. I get those threads behind, and you can see the fingering gets a little bit tricky, but I'm pushing my zipper teeth over, and just start slow. And let me show you once again. You see where my needle is? It's right in this channel next to the teeth. All right, so this finger here is moving like this. That is the action. It's pushing against the teeth. But you see how nice this is now? I don't have to worry about holding the zipper tape in place. It's in place because of that first baste stitch we did. Whoop. Ah, see that? I caught the teeth there. Let's just stop for a moment and look. And you see how now my teeth are right exactly on the edge of the seam. Continue all the way down. And it looks like maybe I opened that up a tad too much. No problem, we'll fix it. The only thing you want to make sure is that you're not sewing into the teeth. And I've said this before in the previous video, if you sew too far away, that's easily corrected. Sew down again, closer. So where you see these stitches popping apart, I'm gonna go ahead and sew all the way down. I took that out a little too much. So right there is what I'm calling the end of the garment seam. And I'm rolling back and rolling forward. Cut. This is our basted edge, yet to be sewn, and here is where we have sewn our teeth. And do the other side. Turning it around, we're sewing bottom to top now, and I'm going to start in the same place. Grab your seam allowance, flip the garment out of the way. So I'm looking at my previous stitch on the other side to know where to put start my needle here, and I hand turn it down. There we go. Pull those threads out of the way. I'm just going to go ahead 2 stitches. This gets a lot of stress, so you definitely can go back over this 3 times. Now with a regular construction stitch, push that out of the way and sew right in our channel. I backed up a couple, of course, and went forward to lock the stitch in. And now I'm going to picking the tail end up so that the slide is facing this down. You can grab it from underneath and pull it right through. All right, thanks for your patience. We took a little break there, and I went over to the ironing board and repressed my seam flat. Now that I have finished, and look at that beautiful result. The main point of using this method is you're avoiding a bumple. Where the seam ends and the zipper starts, it should look like one continuous seam. That's the purpose of an invisible zipper. All you should see is this. And I have to tell you that when I do that and look, all I can say is, it is good. Isn't that the heart of the Father, right? He created and he stepped back and said, it is good. When he created the world, when he created everything in it. And when I create, I often marvel at the finished work and say, it is good. I feel like I've gained the heart of the Father. So, I hope you're encouraged. I hope you're inspired. I'd love to hear your comments, questions, and other methods that you know of. I have not found anybody on YouTube that has done an invisible zipper my way, but By the way, I don't think there's a wrong way. It's just the easiest that I have come up with to keep the struggle down. No zipper is easy, but we can take measured steps and lessen the struggle along the way. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for visiting with me. God bless until next time.